have access to a spirit, a strength that enlarges and empowers you. Even better, you don't need to wait for the next big movement. You can heal the world. It's time for governance by grace. Welcome to Gracearchy with Jim Babka. I know we're evergreen, but I got to say this. Happy New Year, Jim.
Okay. All right. Yes, we are back here for the new year.
We have the new year. It is January 1st.
It's a new year, 2025.
And over here on the left coast, we're kind
of
late.
of Gracearchy, right?
Season 3. We're still in season 3. And a big toast, because this is important, right? We were gifted these mugs, you guys. And if I can get it in the camera frame there. Isn't that a great mug? This is our mug shot. So cheers, Jim.
Our mug shot. Yes. We got to take a sip if we go cheers.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Here's to a happy 2025.
So Susie located a woman named Lucy. Shout out to Lucy to do this. And, for a price, we would make more available if people want to support.
Yeah, absolutely.
We would be willing to do that. So you can reach out to us directly.
I would suggest that these run in the triple digits at this point, because they are, handmade copies.
Yes, but all kidding aside, I mean, we would be more than happy to get more made as long as we can exceed our costs for people who want them. So you can make some kind of donation. We'll make them as a premium if you want. If you go to the zeroaggressionproject.org and use one of the email links at the bottom of the homepage to send us a message saying, I want one of these.
Mug me.
And, we'll be happy to do it. If you're already a pledger, we'll be happy to figure that out. Shipping is going to be the hardest part.
I know. There was a box sitting out by our mailboxes, like a foot square, 12-inch square box somebody sent for the holidays. And you could see the cost that they paid to send this, UPS or whatever. $68, Jim.
Wow. Wow.
So,
and you don't want this to break on the way.
No, you don't want this to break. So maybe we'll charge, shipping and handling is where everybody's making their money these days. That's what's going on with Etsy right now. It's not about the artist. It's about
you can get it for free. Just pay a small shipping and handling fee of $800.72.
You'll have it tomorrow. We'll show up in person.
Yes.
And hand it to you.
With enough money, yes.
With enough money, we would do that.
With enough money, we would do that. Yes.
And we're sort of being facetious about that. But, podcasts take money to run. And right now, Jim's been financing this one out of his own deep pockets.
Well, no. We've been helped by the Zero Aggression Project, the people who give to Downsize DC Foundation. So
here
what are we doing here today?
Okay, so the title, Vivek was wrong. His critics are wronger. And we want to demonstrate how. I don't know if people have seen this tweet or not. Let me put it up on the screen here. But Vivek Ramaswamy tweeted something that got the immigration goat stirring. And we want to analyze that tweet today. Basically, I'm going to read it, and Jim's going to interrupt me whenever he feels like it. And we're going to make 3 big points. And I want to sort of share those in advance so that you'll know where we're going here. Number one, we're more pro-immigration than Vivek is. I don't think he's got an Imago Dei idea of what a human being is really all about. We'll unpack that. Number 2, his critics. Viv's critics are know-nothings. They seem to expose that they're really bigots, actually, which is reverse racism. But, I see it here. And then the last one, there's important nuances. Both sides are ignoring things and are to varying degrees wrong as a result. There is a better way. And of course, Gracearchy, we want to illustrate what that is. So let's dive right in. Feel free to interrupt me anytime, my friend. Vivek Ramaswamy, this is from the 24th, I believe, of December, 26th of December. It hit right around Christmas. The reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit. A lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Editorial insert here, according to Vivek. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ, or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. And he's going to reference some TV shows here, a culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zack and Slater over Screech in Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel in Family Matters, will not produce the best engineers.
Okay, I want to jump in and say here, I was not a fan of Saved by the Bell. It's not a show I actively watched. I'm aware of it, but it's not something that I consider some of my normal programming. But I know enough of it because back then TV was TV, right? So whatever was on, whatever somebody else in your household might be watching at that moment, that's what you were watching, right? Screech didn't outscore Zack. Screech was not. Vivek inadvertently ends up proving that he wasn't watching much television, which was kind of his point, because Screech was just a little bit unusual. He was unique. And there was a trend that was starting right around that same time to begin denigrating or pressing down on certain characters and elevating others in certain ways. This happened with dads in shows too. If you want to talk about SeaWorld and culture, there's a big difference between Ray Romano and Mike Brady, right? Dumb guy became the father for most of these families. The most virtuous character, I think of Cody Lambert on Step by Step, which was around the same time. He was the most virtuous character by far, had a lot of very positive attributes, but he was dumb all the time, right? And this was a trend. It got amplified, right? So, there's all kinds of interesting discussions you can have about what was on TV, but it wasn't the case that Screech outscored Zack, just for whatever it's worth. That wasn't even the point of the show.
But the fundamental mistake here is assuming that those shows reflect actual American culture at that time.
Yeah. So read just a bit further, because I want to. You're tying right into the next point I'd like to make.
Fact. I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch these TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity. And their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates, science, what is it, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, right?
Yes, science, technology, engineering, and math. So it's the type, I think there's something that's missing in the analysis right off the bat.
Oh,
and I'm surprised that somebody...
Many things.
I'm surprised that somebody that has a scientific mind would miss this. There's selection bias at work. So when Vivek says he knows a lot of parents in the early 90s, he's describing his own family experience, probably. That's the more likely explanation. And the community in which he probably associated. And I would suggest that the difference, that the people who have been successful, who are immigrants who become very successful, which is a lot of what this debate's about, has nothing to do with whether they are white or brown or anything else. It has zero to do with that. There is a selection bias at work. The type of people, hear me now, this is severely important. The type of people who become immigrants are the type of people who are taking a big risk, doing a big thing to make a real improvement in their life. They leave hearth, they leave family, they leave all that stuff behind. They go to a strange land where they are a stranger, and they give up that security and take a risk to become something else. They are self-selected out to do something even more extraordinary than most people will do sitting inside the system. So he's overlooking this fact, and he's thinking that this has to do with how much they drove or how hard they drove their children. He's overlooking a second thing, and this is the most obvious of the lessons. That's a pretty obvious one. Here's one even more obvious. Our culture has been dramatically impacted by the state. And one common definition that I happen to really love of the state, it's a kind of a funny aphorism, is it's the fiction whereby we can live at the expense of everyone else.
That seems rather unkind.
Unkind? Really?
It's true, but I had never thought of it that way, Jim. The fiction by where we can live at the expense of everyone else.
Yeah, there's a gravy train. There's other people that have more. We can take from some of them and give to us. It'll all work out in the end, and it's done by everybody. The rich do it to the middle class. The poor do it to the rich. I mean, everybody's trying to take from everybody else, and they're trying to do it through. There's another version of this. I believe it's Mencken who said it's an advanced auction on stolen goods. Every election is an advanced auction on stolen goods. So this institution has crept in every crack and crevice it could possibly get into and changed the incentive structure within it, broken kind of the natural incentive structures towards excellence. So if you're going to say, wait a minute, the problem is that we aren't giving people enough of an education, and we're not giving them enough extracurricular activities, and we're not limiting their TV time, if we're not really molding our children super hard, really driving them, and that's the problem. I think you're overlooking the real problem in the culture, which is that the state has crept in at all these different angles, and we'll get into a couple of them today, and completely broken kind of the natural system that allows people to flourish. So let me give you a concrete example of what I mean. One of the things that is most wrong about the pandemic, one of the things that is most wrong from that period is that when the lockdowns occurred, we still needed people to work, and we deemed some professions essential and others non-essential. And in that process, they said we need a lot of space. So small businesses had to shutter and close their doors, who were reliant on foot traffic and interaction with real human beings, had to close their businesses, while large, giant corporations that were positioned with either a large amount of space inside their facility, Walmart, Target, or the ability to deliver online, Target, Amazon, etc. Those institutions, those ginormous corporations, were given a huge advantage over small business, and small business is shuttered. Now, Bill, you have a dream. You want to do something. You want to start a business. Okay, well, first you're going to need to file this piece of paper. And then you're going to need to hire an accountant to do this. And then you're going to need to hire a lawyer to do that. And then you're going to need to go down to the courthouse and file this thing. And then you're going to need to go buy insurance to do this, because it's a government regulation that you do so. You can't kind of risk it and say, hey, yeah, we're going to see if we can get going for the first 6 months before we buy this policy. Nope, it's required. You got to buy it, right? And then you're going to have to pay this tax. And then you're going to have to pay this fee. And then you're going to have to do this thing. And by the way, you got to do some of these things in a certain order. And you're going to need to hire a consultant who will help you walk through that too. You can begin to see how we're crushing, we're coming down, we're stomping on the dreams of real people. People's ability to want to grow, to be better, to be able to flourish is being compacted by the state. And if you're going to say that our number one problem is that we don't have enough foreign-born people allowed into the country, or you're going to say we are not driving our own children hard enough, we're not grinding them down to become everybody to become a STEM, we're not doing enough of that, then you are ignoring the elephant in the room, which is that the state has made everything way too hard to do. And so here's my belief. Everyone within the sound of my voice has something special in them, and everybody has a dream. And the harder it is to fulfill their dream, the less likely they are to even try. And that's not unreasonable. That's not irrational. Why have we built a structure that, instead of it being based on freedom, we regulate this and we regulate that and we regulate the other thing, and we're pretending somehow or other we're protecting people in all this process, when what we're really doing, this is the unseen part, we're crushing the dreams, the pursuit of happiness of real people. And we all lose, because that thing doesn't get made, and they don't flourish, and they don't become their best self.
Well, this isn't quite the doomsday, though, that everyone thinks it might be, because, like it or not, America is still the most free place to begin to try to thrive, right? I mean, we have people coming here like full-on immigration to the United States, through the legal means, people bringing their families from places like China and Ukraine, whatever. It just, because America is where they feel safer.
Yes. Yes.
And even in spite of that, I mean, leaving everybody behind.
Yes.
right? Leaving
No,
everything.
this is so we're gonna. There's a point I want to get to later, having to do with the visas themselves that are being debated here,
Yeah.
and how we could all be more flourishing in that setting. Let me get one more point in about what Vivek just wrote.
Yeah.
Nations are abstractions. So the concrete, the real, is the personal. What is actually real to you is the experiences that you're having. And right now, that experience is you're interacting with me. You're sitting on the opposite of a camera, but you're interacting with me, and I'm interacting with you. This is the real. This is the personal.
Yeah. 1-to-1. This is how it works.
Okay. The stuff that happens outside of that you do not experience, that's not really real to you. Okay. And when you start to say, what you have to do, because you can't possibly quantify all of this stuff, is you have to generalize. You have to abstract out, and you start to say, well, this person belongs to this group. And by virtue of their membership in this group, they are this thing.
Now we're touching on that cultural point that he made.
Okay. It's even worse than that.
It is.
Okay, because your experience is so limited as a human being. My experience is so limited as a human being that I am attuned to specific things because of the experiences I'm having in recent days, weeks, months, years. So I only have my perspective to bring. Vivek Ramaswamy is a venture capitalist. That's how he made his money. He's in the VC world. And he went out and started selling new products. He helped the launch companies, and he would go be the pitch man. He's very eloquent. He talks well. He give good talk, right? He's good. Elon Musk, who's very much a part of this debate, and we're not going to talk about him very much today, but he's also, running through this whole stream. In fact, Vivek's tweet emerges in the midst of a debate that Elon is having online. Is foreign born, comes on an H-1B visa, starts a company. He's a tech investor. He's trying to build great technological works, and he understands the hiring and the needs, and has a big picture view of the needs in his industry. Now, how much does he know about art? How much does he know about music? How much does he know about love? How much does he know about poetry? How much does he know about biology and chemistry and a whole host of other fields? He's a smart guy, but because he's a human being, he has a frame of reference. I'm suggesting to you, Vivek has a frame of reference. And here's why this is important. Because of the need that he sees in his industry, he believes that now he can become an authority on how to raise children. But every single child is unique, and how you're going to work with them is unique. So here's the memorable bumper sticker I want you to take home today. You ready?
Not Vivek was wrong.
Well, yeah, we can do that one too, but school choice, not school standards. Let me say that again. School choice, not school standards. Okay? If you are treating this like a giant national abstraction problem, and you have your unique point of view, you see one piece of the problem and you say, well, we could fix all of this if we would put in the following institutional structures, regulations, plans, whatever. We could begin to plan everybody's life. No, you can't. Each child is unique. And my vision would be that if your child is especially gifted at dance, they should go to an art and dancing school. If they are specifically talented at sports, they should go to a school that is geared towards their athletic accomplishments on the field, maximizing their education from the things that they're actually interested in. If your child likes to tinker and build, there should be entrepreneurial schools where they can tinker and build. There should be a school for every type of child out there. And we don't have that. There is a surrogate that kind of fills in this role called homeschooling. There's even a thing that you can do called unschooling. We did it for close to 2 years with our two boys, which is the only class, we weren't perfect about this. The only class we taught on a 3 or 4 day a week basis was math, because we couldn't quite figure out in our family, and other families would be very different. Some would be able to do this, but we couldn't figure out how to make the math, because they were in like the 5th, 6th grade where the math is beyond basic, addition, subtraction, multiplication. We were starting to we would sit down and do that as an educational thing. But what we did instead is we took the activities that they were doing encourage them to do more of those activities, but we wanted them to be able to explain the significance of the activity. Let me give you a concrete example so you understand what I'm saying. My boys both liked playing a game called Age of Empires at the time. In Age of Empires, there were historical characters. Yep. Hey, let's go take a trip to the library, Sue would say, and we will go have, you will go learn more about Age of Empires and the characters that are in the thing. Oh, wait a minute. You're going to need to build. Like, how is building done? Like, what would actually happen? Like, it's a game or whatever, but what would, like, you try to find ways to expand on the interests that they presently had, as opposed to saying, sit down, shut up, listen, memorize, repeat it back to me. And I don't care whether you're interested in the topic or not, which is exactly how our government schools run. And here is Vivek saying, you know what? The government schools don't run that hard enough. They need to do more STEM, and kids need to be forced to do more homework. And if we force them, if we really force them good and hard, they would come out better, because he can only see one part of the problem, and he's dealing with humans as an abstraction.
But he's seeing the successful part of the solution at the same time as he's, trumpeting the problem.
There's a great mistake that lots of humans make. I see people do this all the time. I hear them do it all the time. My experience, my way, the thing that worked for me is the best thing for you. I can tell you exactly how you should live your life.
Clearly, that's the way it works. I mean, why we don't have to debate that, right?
Okay, but let's take Elon for a second, okay? And I happen to have a billionaire in my life. I can tell you the truth of the following statement. They're wired differently. They ain't wired like you. And I mean this. Everybody listening to me that's not a billionaire or a centimillionaire, if you're not in that class, you don't want to be. And so the billionaire in my life watches one movie a year because his wife kind of makes him sit down and do at least one. And he picks very carefully. I actually recommended a movie that I thought was very relevant to something we were doing on a project we were involved in. And he said, it's too dark. It's too violent. I wouldn't let something like that into my head. And besides that, I don't have time. Like, I'm only going to watch one movie this year. It ain't going to be that one. Now, wait a minute. I want to make clear. He's not spending his time on social media. He's not spending his time on watching movies. He isn't going to sporting events regularly. He did do something with his son once, right? During the course of the year. He might do one game as well to be with his son. Like, there's a different mentality there. He enjoys working. You would actually make him unhappy if you said, you can't work for 3 days. You would literally decrease his happiness. He describes the projects he's working on as Sundays. Like an ice cream sundae. Okay, Elon, from everything I've been able to pick up, this dude works all day, all night, all weekend. 8 days a week, sometimes 9 days a week. Right? And that's part of why he is where he's at, is that obsession with being in that position and giving up a lot of things. This is the tendency of these guys. They give up a lot of things in order to be that thing.
Well, I don't know if they even have the give up mentality about it. I think they never see those things in the first place.
They just don't care.
It doesn't matter to them.
Okay. But if you want a different life, and this is my problem with this one size fits all approach, is that most people aren't wired this way. Everybody's uniquely wired. You're made in the image of God. The Imago Dei means that you have a special creative shape to bring to the world. And one of your duties, I don't know, you major in consciousness. I don't understand that fully, but maybe one of the definitions or the directions of consciousness is the idea that you begin to discover who you really are.
Oh, sure.
Where you fit in the world.
Yeah.
What your purpose and meaning is.
Yeah.
And then you live that out, and that's where you flourish the most. And it's going to be different for everybody. So the idea that we've got to drive people harder will make them STEM, it just doesn't work.
It's true. It actually injures more people than it helps. I mean, it literally injures them.
Okay.
I'm parent of 5 kids, 3 out of 5.
Okay. So I want to take this one step further, and I'm going to hurt a lot of feelings right now. I'm sorry. It's just got to be done. We're not thinking about these issues correctly. So I've talked about the fact that we're crushing down people who would want to entrepreneurially express their dreams. And I'm also suggesting that not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody wants to be in a STEM profession. That is not going to be their shape for flourishing. But I do believe that if we had a free environment, there would be more people moving to whatever opportunities were available, and they would be more successful and flourishing in so doing. But they wouldn't mostly go to work for large corporations. Most of them would choose to be entrepreneurs of some kind. They would want to have some greater level of control over when they get up, when they go to bed, when they start working, when they stop working, when they take breaks, how they take those breaks, etc. They would want that level of control. At some point, the money would be less an issue, and the level of control that they would have over their lives or over their work setting while they're doing their work would begin to matter to them more. And they would begin maybe even making the work environment a much better environment. But we purposely, under the system of capitalism that we're operating under here, we purposely suppress that. And it leads to the fact that people become cogs. If the owner of your company doesn't know you, if the owner of the company doesn't know you, I have bad news for you. You're a cog. You've chosen to be a cog. And cogs get treated like cogs. The real question that we have failed to ask ourselves, and I see people who have talked about the visas. We're going to talk about them before we're done. But I see people talking on both sides on the economic opportunity, whether enough Americans are getting an opportunity, and so on and so forth, is that why aren't there more opportunities for the cogs? Why aren't cogs paid better? Cogs should get more money. Cogs should get more benefits. Cogs should get better health care. They don't realize they're saying this, but this is exactly what they're selling. They're not offering the best opportunity here. The best opportunity would be that a lot more of us had the ability to shape our destinies and build on our dreams and build a better world as a result, because everybody's creativity has been maximized and flourishing is beginning to spread everywhere.
Yeah, but we don't see that in the world. Even in the corporate world, we see creativity being crushed and individual initiative being crushed. And it doesn't matter if you're working at Google or IBM. You've got better trappings around you probably at Google than you do at IBM, but you're still being crushed. You're still, you have to toe the line. And if it's not your line, you don't belong there.
Right. Right.
Regardless of how brilliant you are.
Yep. If we made entrepreneurship a lot less burdensome, a lot easier, a lot more direct, the opportunities that people would pursue and the way that they would go about pursuing them would so fundamentally change, and life at work would be so much better.
And I'd like to suggest that we would return to a culture of wealth instead of a culture of scarcity.
Yes. So that's what they're arguing over. They're fighting over who's going to get what. I mean, this entire thing is
the wrong
trapped in a frame. So let me just wrap up Vivek. We're going to go back to his tweet in a second, but I want to make clear he misses the mark. He doesn't quite get to where it is he's supposed to get to. He's saying something that is fundamentally sound, which is we have to open the doors to more opportunity, and this will be good for the country if we do it.
I can agree with that.
But he is suggesting that
they're his doors and his opportunities, and right.
But he's also suggesting that he's ignoring the fundamental humanity of the people involved in the process.
Yep.
And there are people who know this, who are reacting negatively to him, but they're reacting in all the wrong ways. They're reacting in all the wrong ways. Can we keep going with, I think there's a little more to his tweet.
Yeah, let's bring it back up here. More movies like Whiplash. I mean, we're going to do a few of these. Fewer reruns like Friends. More math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chillin', more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kinds of parents. I'm going to keep reading, but I could be jumping up and down right now. More normal American kids view those kinds of kids with scorn. Again, jumping up and down. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normacy is what you will achieve. Perhaps that's a true thing, but I don't think that that's what's going on. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raised their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened from slumber.
There you see this ability. I spoke too soon. There you see this national plan. We can have a national plan to make ourselves greatness. We can have a Sputnik moment. We can have a Sputnik moment. I jumped the gun in getting this point across, but that's it. There he's saying it. Everybody is fundamentally a cog in the machine. We are a team. You're a cog. Get used to it.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's keep going. And be afraid. Be very afraid, because, you know, Sputnik scared us into the space race. Okay, we've awakened, square brackets, SIC, from slumber before, and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for us. Rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practice into existence, I'm confident we can do it.
So now that last part, and it turns out this whole thing ends up tweaking the entire support base. This is now a raging debate inside MAGA world, inside Trump land, because there's another crowd inside there. These are the tech bros. Vivek speaks for the tech bros. They joined the Trump movement and helped push it over the top, because it wasn't going to win without that backing and support. Elon is important to the victory that Trump won. The know-nothings thought that they were getting something. I want to be clear. Let me just hold the phone for a second. When I use the term know-nothing, I am not insulting anybody, although it probably is deserved. But we're Gracearchy. It's not what we do. Know-nothing is a political term. It's part of American culture. The know-nothings existed during the 1900s. They were nativists who did not want immigrants to be able to get into America. And they worked to stop immigration. And they argued back then, they were a little more honest about it. We'll get to honesty in a second. They argued on honesty that certain people were better qualified to be Americans than other people. And we could tell, one of the ways we could tell that was by the slant of their eye or the color of their skin. That's one of the ways we could do it. We could also do it by religion. You know, if they were Catholic or Muslim, they shouldn't be allowed in the country. It's not, you know, this is part of the American history. Every single time it's been wrong. Let me say that again. Every single one of these groups that they said was going to be the great danger to us, they've been wrong. Now, it may be that the next time they're going to be right. Just like, you know, I'm going to hold up this pen and let it go. It may not drop the next time. Maybe something funny happens. But you know what? It so consistently drops that I don't expect them to be right anymore. The know-nothing side has always been wrong about the outgroup against which they had bias at the time. Always, full stop. So I don't have any reasonable expectation it's going to change next time. So I'm not insulting anyone here. If you're a nativist who believes that certain people are better qualified to be Americans, you are what's called a know-nothing. And I can say that with confidence, not just on a historical basis, but because you've been consistently wrong. You're not aware of the facts. I'm also a bit confused, Bill. The response that Vivek got, some of it was brutally bigoted.
Yeah.
And I'm confused. Two different things confuse me. First, I don't know if, have you heard of Schrodinger's immigrant?
No, I love that. I got your notes. I'm like, I know Schrodinger's cat, right?
Well, Schrodinger's cat is what? Simultaneously dead and not dead.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Which are two opposite states. It cannot be both.
It cannot be both, but we
only know when we open the box.
The only when we open the box, right? You have to look at it. You have to observe it to know.
Okay, so is an immigrant a lazy ne'er-do-well who takes welfare, or are they a hardworking, industrious person who steals an American job?
Yeah, open the box, check it out, actually look and ask and figure it out, people. Don't just make an assumption that all immigrants are murderers and rapists.
Okay, so there's this thing that some of these know-nothings do, and they think they've managed to disguise their bigotry because some significant chunk of them have this problem. They will say, oh, I'm for legal immigration. I just want to stop illegal immigration.
Right.
Leaving aside a whole host of arguments about that specific topic, let me just say that when you tell them, oh, we're proposing a legal immigration process here. Oh, no, we can't let those people into the country. And they have some other reason.
That's when it
So
happens.
they're not for legal immigration either. The previous statement is a lie that they're not confusing me with anymore, by the way. I'm not tricked. They're deceiving themselves that they actually are good people and believe this. So if you're advocating this on the basis of race, I'm sorry, that's not Christian. That's not gracious. That's not humanitarian. That's not humane. That's not realizing the real as opposed to the abstraction of the real human beings that are trying to come in. You don't know enough of them. By the way, great experience. Go meet some of them.
Yeah.
Second thing that I don't know if they understood who they were voting for. Because a lot of them are saying right now, he's betraying the MAGA revolution. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but over the summer, a dude was added to the ticket. His name is J.D. Vance. And if you pick up a book, I got a specific one in mind. It's called Hillbilly Elegy. And you would read the book. Oh, wait, I'll save you the trouble because maybe you don't like to read. If you would go and watch the movie Hillbilly Elegy, you will find out where J.D. Vance comes from and what he thinks of the habits of the community from which he came. He agrees more by far with his fellow venture capitalist Vivek Ramaswamy than he does with know-nothing immigration policy. He understands the need for workers to come in and so forth. He understands that certain people have better habits and better drive. That's what Hillbilly Elegy covered. It is his superior drive, despite the circumstances in which he found himself. He did also have other themes in that book. We're not here to belabor that point. I want to point out you voted for J.D. Vance for vice president. And this is the J.D. Vance part of that ticket. And that die was already cast over the summer. And you didn't see J.D. Vance and go flocking to Chase Oliver or RFK. You stuck with Trump. There's an irony in this.
There's so many.
Here's a particularly delicious one. It's been pointed out, I am not the first observer to do it. I will share a tweet where two different people make this point in the show notes. I will put this in the show notes for people to see. But the shoe's been put on the other foot. White America has been telling Black America to turn your hat around, pull your pants up, stop listening to that rap music and get a job. And Vivek Ramaswamy just turned the same trick on them. I don't think he should have done it. I didn't like it when it was being done before. But you got to love the fact that some of the same people who would make a comment about pull yourself up by your bootstraps would suddenly be offended by the fact that they got to compete with anybody else themselves. They should be kept in that status. They should be protected. And so you know what, Bill? Here's another point where I'm going to blow everybody's mind. The arguments for immigration restrictions are not really different from affirmative action. You're saying that Americans should have a special place protected for them. People who were born here, people who were white in some cases, because some people said this stuff out loud, right? They said it out loud. They said the racist part for everybody to see on Twitter, that they should somehow or other be protected. They should be given those jobs, like affirmative action. These are ironies that I can't help noticing, right? You talked one way to a certain group of people, and now it's being done to you, and you don't like it. Oh, good. Maybe you could learn something from that. Oh, wait, you don't like affirmative action, but you want it for you and your kids? And let me just say, Tom Woods, who is I would put him in the anarcho-capitalist crowd, saw what was going on and immediately jumped to Vivek's defense and did so ably and competently, made good points. But the people in his comment section, this is where I first saw the bigotry. It turns out it was all over the place, but I happened to see it there. There were people who were not the least bit ashamed of their racism in the comments. Not the least teeny tiny bit ashamed of the fact that they don't like people who have different skin color, different culture, whatever. They don't some cases merely dislike them. They hate them.
This is nothing new, by the way. I'm not surprised.
No, I think it is. And I think if we went back literally just a dozen years, everyone kind of agreed that Martin Luther King Jr. was a hero and that racism was bad. What we're experiencing now is that people are actually beginning to scapegoat on the basis of race, and they're willing to put it in print. So you would meet somebody who was racist, and they might say something to you like, well, I don't mean to sound racist, or I'm not a racist, but, right? And then they would say the racist thing, right? There was some reservation that people had. Maybe that expression was there all along, but there was some reservation they have. Now they're just letting their freak flag fly. And I thought it was interesting because even in this immigration debate, I kept hearing, I'm for legal immigration. I'm just opposed to illegal immigration. And I was like, okay, well, here's a program, right? Now they're saying, here's a program. It's called H-1B. No. Don't let those people in.
When you said let the freak flag fly, try to say that 3 times fast.
I could do it, actually.
I have been aware of this for a long, long time, starting with the black church burnings in the South in the 80s and 90s. And this is the whole notion of racism that still exists is not new. And yes, we have more people who are feeling more free about expressing their points of view starting in around 2016 or perhaps before. I don't want to blame Trump for that, but these people have a voice where they didn't have one before, and it's a freaky sounding voice, man. So you are right about the freak flag.
I would have been led to believe, and maybe I was in the wrong, that we were going the other direction with this. I know what the differences I had with my father's generation on these issues.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I know that the differences my father's generation had with his father's generation.
Yeah.
But if I were to lay out for you the differences that I could see in those generations, real movement had occurred.
Yeah, I agree with you about that, Jim.
This is like a weed that has come back, and I'm wondering why.
Oh, well, Donald J. Trump.
Well, no, I think it has more to do with scarcity, a fear-based mentality.
Okay, so then we're going to talk about the white men, the deaths of despair that were studied and people offing themselves because as white guys with no union to support them and no jobs in the manufacturing sector and everything else that they were told to do right, now they're just...
But I'm opposed to that too. I want to go back to something I said. I think most people, given the opportunity, would do more than they presently do.
Yes,
they would go out and entrepreneur.
Agree.
They would go out and find a shape that matched them more.
Yes.
Like, okay, let's go back to the school thing for just a second. We talked about, kind of customizing or making school a bit more bespoken to each of the children that are in it, right? Because the individuals matter, the abstraction. They're not all the same kid. They're all different. They're all special and unique. So we go to the personal instead of the abstraction. And if we want things to be more bespoke, but let's even say more effective in the realm of education, if that's what we really, really wanted, then we might start covering some other subjects about actualizing, about being more successful, about knowing how to learn, about knowing how to grow, about learning the value of risk and how to measure it correctly. There's a whole host of small micro topics that every one of us experiences as an adult that are not covered in our education system.
Oh, absolutely, because we're all about STEM now. We don't want to have a humanity
or whatever. I mean, I don't.
If
somebody comes along and says we need more humanities education, I tell them they're all wet too. Right?
Well, but the kids got to have imagination. You don't get that from learning how to code.
Okay. The most important thing, maybe I'm violating my own rule. The most important thing you should learn in school is how to learn.
Yes, right. That's the purpose of school. It's not to memorize facts.
And so there's no set body or corpus of knowledge that is the set body or corpus of knowledge. There's no curriculum design that maximizes. That's not the thing. Every one of these human beings are unique, but I'm suggesting that even below that, there are certain things that you need to know to be a human being. Certain things you don't figure out the easy way. Certain things that we could maybe help people develop tools for emotional ability, for whatever.
If Vivek was honest, he would talk about that. Right?
Yeah, and I'm saying that all of that is missing when you start trying to say there is a one perfect way.
Yep.
And I happen to be in a position, I'm on the Doge committee. I know what that is.
Yeah.
You don't.
You don't.
See, when the state gets involved in something, they have one tool. It's a sledgehammer. And everything starts looking like some kind of spike or nail. And so they pound the crap out of it. That's how they do things. Their force, their initiated force, their violence. And they crush in the process. dreams and incentive structures that are natural, that are designed, that if we were able to move around and be our own people, we would begin to flourish in ways that just can't even begin to be described. Think very hard about yourself, number one. Okay, I'm going to give you a thought experiment. You can almost close your eyes and do this. Think about yourself, and then also, the life experience you've had, and then also think about your children. And imagine if they had, now some barriers are good for us. Like we have to contend, we have to fight, we have to claw and grow. That gives us strength. Okay. But think about things that you could have or would have done, or that maybe they could have or would have done if a unnatural roadblock had not been in the way. Not a natural roadblock, right? He's got to figure out how to beat the competition. That's a natural roadblock, right? You got to figure out how to deliver the best product for the best price. Those are natural roadblocks. I'm talking about unnatural roadblocks. Go fill this form out, go pay this fee, go hire this expert, which is most of what goes on. And given that he's on Doge, that's where he ought to be spending his time. This argument that it's the C word culture, and that culture has to do with the fact we're not pounding kids at STEM good and hard enough, that is not part of the Doge solution.
Yes.
The real Doge solution would be to pull all those regulations off and give people the maximum opportunity to make the relationships between consenting adults that they choose to make for themselves, free of coercion, theft, and violence.
That's what grew America.
It is.
And we're turning away from that now turning away from that now as if the captain of the ship knows what he's doing. We have
inadvertently landed into my third and final theme.
Yes.
Which is that
Love this.
People are not merely economic units.
Yes.
I am not in a STEM profession. I kind of wish I could have been, but I was bad at math. It isn't that I can't abstract concepts, because they do it right in front of this audience all the time. But for some reason, the math part of it just didn't click for me. I found out that I was really good at history and social studies. And as I've related on this show before, I scored in the 99th percentile on that more than once on standardized testing. I took the ACT instead of the SAT, which was the SAT when I was coming out was more popular at the time, because there was a social studies component in it. And I knew that my score would be better. I was right. I had one of the top scores in my class. And I wasn't a good student at school. I was a bad student. I didn't like school. I didn't like people telling me what I had to learn, but I've never stopped learning. I'm constantly learning. When I get to set my own schedule, I do that. And so I have begun to discover my shape and my concept of flourishing. And it turns out it has nothing to do with science, technology, engineering, or math. I thank God for people who do science, technology, engineering, and math. And I want education to be so great for the people that are interested in that if that is their shape, they discover it and flourish in it. We should be true to who we are. We should actually get assistance in figuring out who we are. Instead of being told we should all be Vivek, we should be told all learn how to be Bill and Jim and everybody else that's watching right now.
No, I agree. I agree. But I think we've already lost the race.
We haven't. I want to say one more thing before we close. H-1B. H-1B is a process for bringing workers into the country from foreign countries. It is not gracious or a libertarian idea. It's a compromise. It might be a necessary compromise. Given that so many people are fearful of the idea that we would let immigrants in, we have this cap and quotas system where so many people can get in, and there has to be an overly complicated, expensive bureaucrat system, lots of regulation for hiring the workers that we necessarily need. And as soon as this happened, as Elon he was actually the center of this debate, people started going to the H-1B records, which are publicly available, and started pulling the receipts on the types of workers that were coming in. And saying, clearly, these jobs could have been offered to America. This is not bringing the best and brightest into the country. This is not improving us in some important STEM-focused basis. They were cashing in the receipts. They technically are probably right. So in H-1B is basically, the reason I say it's not gracious or libertarian is it's basically an indentured servitude program. You're a temporary slave. You get in on this program. That's how you get in the door, is you agree to be a slave for a while. And you can't afford to lose your job. Like if you or I lose our jobs, then we can go down the street and get another job. But if you lose your job in your H-1B, you might be required to leave the country. You might not be allowed to be here anymore. You're here on a visa. So that's why I say, because of this indentured servitude aspect, it's not the gracious or libertarian idea. But given the fact that we are concerned about immigrants coming and taking welfare, or immigrants changing how the results of elections, or whatever it is that people are concerned about right now, and I'm not going to invalidate either one of those concerns as I say this, maybe it's a compromise that allows us to get people in the door. But I will tell you the fact that we are not, if we don't let regular people in the door, those regular people aren't going to get the opportunities they want to move on and do even greater things. And they do. And that's part of the point that Elon has made, is that a lot of them have. And we benefit from it. What should happen instead, what I wish would happen instead, the direction we should move is to the point where every human being can move across the line. They can come and they can go, so long as they're willing to come here and work. Period. Full stop. I don't even need the details on it. You're going to come in, you're going to get a number, you're going to start working. You're going to start working. You're going to take care of yourself. And if you can't take care of yourself, you'll tap into a community that will help take care of you. Maybe they're already here and they'll be willing to do it. That's what a immigration enclave often is. And they would determine the capacity of how many people they can help at a time. But it shouldn't be on us as the taxpayers to do that. We shouldn't be forced to pay for that stuff. They should come here and seek opportunity and get it. If they're coming for opportunity, they should be allowed in the door. Full stop. And there's nothing else to discuss. We shouldn't even be worried about whether or not there is a door. What did I just describe? Open borders. Open borders is the imago Dei, Christian, humane position. You don't want to hear that? I'm sorry. You can go back through your Old Testament and find out that the sojourner, the traveler, the outsider, you can see this in Jesus's parables, is supposed to be served by the people there. They're supposed to help them. Not by compulsion, but voluntarily. We should want these people here because, frankly, they keep expanding our economy and our wealth. As they grow, we grow. As they get more successful, we all benefit from both their creative work output and the wealth and the money that they put out into the economy. And we all grow. We all benefit. There's more opportunity, not less. This is not a shrinking pie. This is not a zero-sum game. More opportunity for everyone. And it's been estimated that if that happened, that if we had that in place, that GDP would double. Double. If everyone in the world could move as much as they wanted to, world GDP would double. Well, guess what? Elon's right about something, and Vivek is right about something. If you think of the United States as a team, the more people we have here who are talented and want to work hard, the more advantage our economy has over all the other economies on the planet. We outcompete. We get the best people and we keep getting better. We get better people. People keep coming and we get better and better. And every one of them brings their unique shape to this thing and begins to do it. I think Vivek erred. I think Vivek missed the mark. I think he should have talked about how human creativity is always good. Full stop. And it doesn't matter whether it's STEM or not. I think that's the real truth. But the idea that somehow because somebody is not of our skin color or don't share our particular culture, that even though they're willing to leave behind their life and their family to come and be here with us and pursue opportunity, to pursue the American dream, that we're not somehow going to be better off that, well, that's not just wrong. It's harmful to our entire economy and the spirit of our culture. I would prefer not an H-1B program being expanded. If we got to do that, if that's the way we got to do it, then that's the compromise we have to settle on for right now. That's maybe better than what we've got at the moment, but it's not good enough. Valuing every human being for the image that God shared with them, for the creative potential that they bring. That's the grace way. That's the libertarian way. That's the way that will make America great.